Tottenham's head coach search ends. De Zerbi arrives at Tottenham. Archie Gray has interest from Manchester United, amongst others. Kulu wants to return for the World Cup. And James Maddison looks good in training. Here's your weekly Tottenham news review. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is the weekly Tottenham news review with me, Lee The Dorset Spur. If you're new around here and you're watching on YouTube, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Like, share and comment in the comment section below. If you're listening on audio platforms, please do consider following and leave a review if you can. Well, there's only really one story, isn't there? Let's be honest. It's all about Roberto De Zerbi signing for Tottenham. So we spent pretty much a week trying to understand what's going to happen. There was lots and lots of different reports and rumours and stories about relegation clauses and different legends coming in and potential for Pochettino to come back and so on and so forth. So there's been lots and lots and lots of speculation, and now that is finally out of the way, as it was announced that De Zerbi has signed for Tottenham Hotspur as the new head coach and will be staying with us on a long-term deal. Very interesting decision, I guess. Johan Lang has commented that De Zerbi was our main target for the summer, and they were pleased to get him in early, just to help us get through the last 7 games of the season to try to avoid relegation. So De Zerbi hasn't signed a contract with a relegation clause in it. There is no relegation clause. So even if Tottenham are relegated, De Zerbi will be the manager next season in the Championship, looking to rebuild and get us back into the Premier League at the first attempt. Am I confident about that? So this is the difficulty now, isn't it? I've seen lots and lots of other stories circulating, opinions from people like Simon Jordan, Alan Shearer, David Bentley and so on, all questioning this appointment. But there really isn't any other options out there that could have made this difference. I think the biggest speculation and the biggest concern is how much money De Zerbi is being paid. £12 million a year, and will be the third highest. I thought it was the second, but the third highest paid manager in the Premier League. Simon Jordan said, is De Zerbi the third best manager in the Premier League? No, but basically he could write his own contract, which seems fair, to be honest with you. And if you were him, you would have done exactly the same and looked after yourself for the long term. He's on a 5-year deal, but potentially if he were to leave before that, then I'm sure there will be clauses in that he doesn't get the full 5 years in terms of payout, because he's not known for staying longer than a couple of seasons anyway. But maybe this is the role that he's really been waiting for. Maybe this is the one that he would really, really want. Technically a big six, inverted commas, team in Tottenham Hotspur. Lots of potential. All the bits and pieces are there: the stadium, the training, the hotel, the staffing, all that kind of stuff. It's all in place. The fan base is huge. So everything is in place for him to be able to make this a success. All that's missing is the right team or the right individuals within that team able to perform at the highest level. You don't have to have the best player in every position, but what you have to have is team spirit and belief and togetherness and work ethic and those kinds of things. And De Zerbi may be that crossover that gives us both of those things. Because when you consider Thomas Frank was very much a tactician, he apparently can change from one setup to another and all the rest of it. But for me, was never ever the right kind of guy in terms of motivation and instilling belief and so on. Then you bring in Igor Tudor, who was very much a disciplinarian type coach, strict and da-da-da. And at the time I've said I didn't think that would work because young men these days, not just young men, young people in general, but in this instance, young men don't tend to react particularly well to just being shouted at. A lot of them need that supportive arm. They need that, I don't know, that kind of belief in them and motivation to keep them going. These are, extremely rich young men that have had the world at their feet pretty much from being youngsters, coming through academies and so on. They've not grown up doing some of the stuff that youngsters do today. They've been protected to a certain extent. So the harsh realities of the workplace, are not likely to have been there. This isn't like, a player that was a plumber or an electrician or a bricklayer before they came. These guys have generally come through an academy, so they need that level of belief in them and so on to really feel the love and that. And even with the controversy over Greenwood, you can kind of understand that what he was trying to do in that scenario of never publicly calling out the player, but dealing with it behind closed doors, offering him support, offering him the right level of, arm around the shoulder and discipline about what he needs to do and so on. So from my point of view, he seems like he is the right kind of guy for that. Of course, I've said in previous videos, my view on Postecoglou was that he was a great man motivator, real good at that. But he was very fixated on his way to play, and that was it. And when you then hit injuries and problems, you're then left trying to play the same way with players that are not necessarily good enough to be able to do that for you. So, it was always going to come unstuck. If Postecoglou had had the depth of squad available to him with players at the right level across all positions, then I do believe that Postecoglou would not have ended up 17th. And also, I think, had he not put all his eggs in the Europa League basket, then again, we wouldn't have ended up 17th. So I do think last season was a bit of an anomaly in terms of where we finished. We were never in any threat of being relegated, but I do think the change to Frank really just did not work. And as soon as we hit injuries, the thinness of the squad was clear for all to see, and Thomas Frank was not able to motivate those people. So this is kind of the next step, really, of trying to find someone who can do both of those things: motivate and discipline, and set standards and structure, and have tactics and so on. So it's a gamble. Of course, it's a gamble. Any manager could be great or any manager could be poor. We struck it really lucky with Pochettino, and he was given a lot of time, but not necessarily the backing that he really needed. And again, going all the way back to 2019, 18, 19, when he left, around that time, I do believe that is what set us back so far, because up until that point, we were doing particularly well. last poor season for Pochettino, but despite getting in the Champions League final and losing out to Liverpool, and look what's happened to Liverpool since, as opposed to what's happened to Tottenham since. So, big sliding doors moment for me there in terms of what we needed to do. I think Levy got his head turned very much by Mourinho saying, "You've got a great squad here, you just need a winning mentality, and I'm that man." And I think he got his head turned, and it's led us down this path of win now managers, and then back to project managers, and then back to tacticians, and now we are where we are. So a big ask, and a big job for De Zerbi, like I say, and people like Shearer and so on calling it out are right to do so, because say this is a big risk. But on the other hand, you've got people like Graham Roberts, Jermaine Defoe, and Sandro in particular calling out how great De Zerbi is, and the fact that they think he's the right man for the job. Sandro, in probably the most vocal out of all of those people, ex-players, legends, played for him, been his captain, coached with him, and looks like he's trying to put himself in the frame for a job. Is the most vocal about him being really technically good, a real good motivator, and turning players, even seasoned players like himself, into players that really wanted to learn from him and really wanted to perform. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens. He has had his interview. He has tried to address the Mason Greenwood controversy and so on. I've talked about that previously on my own channel. So if you want to know about that, please do go over to my channel, Lee The Dorset Spur, and take a look at that. But yeah, he's trying to close that out and move on and bring the fan base together, because obviously there are certain sections of the fan base that are not very happy with the appointment. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly that can come together, if at all, or how quickly it goes the other way, depending on results, because obviously no game this week, so it gives him a week from today. I think he starts today in terms of working with the players, getting to know the players, getting to know the problems, and thinking about how tactically he's going to turn it around to beat Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. So his first real press conference will be next week, where I'm sure he'll have to defend those comments previously again and kind of lay out his strategy going forward. But of course, from our point of view, the strategy's got to be win the games. You just win as many games as you can, because if West Ham beat Wolves on next Friday, that puts us in the bottom three. And from a kind of viewpoint, when you're looking at being in the bottom three, that psychologically can be a big impact, a big dent in your confidence. So we need to get out of that, avoid that, and stay out of that as much as possible. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where we go from here, and I'm sure there'll be lots of twists and turns. But hopefully, he is the man that's going to keep us up. At least we've got a clear direction of where we're going from this moment in time. So yeah, interesting. Looking at Opta. They put out a report that suggests that Tottenham have a 27.47% chance of getting relegated. Wolves are at 99.94% and Burnley at 99.90%, which is, expected. That's what you would expect. They're right down there at the bottom two. West Ham are then at 56.94 and Tottenham are at 27.47 before it drops right down to 8.48 for Forest. Leeds at 7.20 and Crystal Palace at 0.07. So Palace, Leeds, Forest still in there, still up for grabs and potentially having problems. But the likelihood is it's between West Ham and Tottenham, potentially Forest. Well, there's a big difference between what they're saying for Forest and Tottenham, so 20% difference. But then there's a 30% difference between Tottenham and West Ham, and yet there is only 1 point between us and West Ham and 2 points between us and Forest. So if Forest lose, we win, and West Ham lose, we will be back 1 point ahead of Forest, and they'll be, down there again, with West Ham only sort of 1 point above West Ham. So, or 2 points above West Ham, should I say. So, it's not done and dusted yet. And maybe this is the managerial bounce that we are waiting for to make that difference. So it'll be really interesting to see. One of the other stories I kind of picked up this week was the one about Archie Gray, which I kind of wanted to touch on because Archie Gray has shown over the last few games how important he could be for Tottenham Hotspur. He has done very, very well. He's played very well. I'm just looking for the actual quotes. But from my point of view, he's probably been one of the standout guys. Bearing in mind, he's like 19, 20 years of age. And he has been, one of the outstanding players. Against Forest, I thought he played really, really well in the first half because he was in his natural position in the centre of midfield. Second half, they moved him back to defensive duties, and we saw what happened. There was nothing in midfield, and we got absolutely ripped apart. So I think there's a lesson in there. Play the players in the right positions, play the players who are able to perform and are performing, and give them the opportunity to do what they need to do. Players in form, players in right positions makes all the difference. Playing a formation that works for those players as well. I go back to Igor Tudor having, no centre-backs, but playing three at the back. And it's like, what are you doing, mate? It makes no sense to me. And that's been called out even by people like Tim Sherwood. Alan Shearer was quoted as saying it as well. So I'm not on my own. I know I'm not a pundit. I know I'm not an expert on football and so on, but I know what I see, and I have my opinions. And when those opinions are backed up by professional footballers, ex-professional footballers, you kind of think yourself, well, I'm not that stupid then, am I? Some people will obviously disagree with that. But yeah, Archie Gray, I thought has been very, very good. But there's been lots of media reports about Manchester United being really interested in him as a player, which understand that. It was difficult. They were looking to try to get him before, but obviously his connections to Leeds and so on, and the rivalry between Leeds and Manchester United, although not been for a while with Leeds being down in the Championship and so on, and all their troubles, it's kind of mitigated a little bit, but there is still a rivalry there. You don't generally, share players. Yeah, they were interested, but it's also been reported that Aston Villa are interested. Aston Villa, Chelsea, Borussia Dortmund are all interested in him. Now, my personal view on this is I don't think he would tend to want to go to Manchester United and become a bit part player when he knows he's almost on the cusp of turning into a regular for Spurs. I think he would recognise that he's going to get more regular football. And Manchester United are not Manchester United of old. They do have a pull. Of course they do as a massive club, but I don't think they have the pull that they used to have in terms of we can guarantee you trophies. Bearing in mind he's just won the Europa League. Aston Villa, I don't think are there yet. They're kind of bubbling around the top four, but aren't really there. Chelsea, I think it's difficult because of the relationship between Tottenham and Chelsea. I don't think Tottenham would want to sell to Chelsea. And Borussia Dortmund, again, I'm not sure that they are a big enough name in Germany. They are one of the big clubs, obviously, but I don't think they are one of the ones that would really turn his head. Bayern Munich, maybe, with the influence of maybe Harry Kane, potentially. But again, I think it's too early, and I think if we can keep in the Premier League, I think he's got as much chance as anybody starting next season, depending on what the board do, obviously, because we are still stuck with whatever the board decide to do. So for me, I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, but it was an interesting story, and one I kind of thought, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But I think, a player on the cusp of really breaking into the team suggests to me that Tottenham is the better option for him at the moment. He's got good people around him, footballing people as well. So I don't think they're in any rush for him to go rushing off anywhere else at this moment in time. He's earning good money, and like I say, just won a trophy and stuff. Probably owes a little bit to the club. He's under contract, so there's no need for Tottenham to sell, unless, of course, we get relegated, and then they decide they need to sell players. But time will tell on all of that. So yeah, those are the kind of main ones I wanted to run through. I don't think there was anything major following that. Obviously, we've had the international break, so most players have been out on international duty. A lot of Tottenham players have played. I don't think any of them have done anything particularly big, although lots of them have played bit parts and so on and so forth. So for me, it's just a case of keeping sharp and keeping the training up and so on, and hopefully none of them come back injured and we can kind of step on a little bit further. Of course, I guess the final one in terms of the international roundup is Dejan Kulusevski saying that, having been out for a year, but he's got sort of 3 or 4 months before the World Cup, he backs himself to be able to be fit for that, which is great for him in terms of, and great for Sweden, but not particularly great for Tottenham. Bear in mind, we've just lost out on him for a season and a half. So, it would be nice actually if he could come back and be a talisman for Spurs for the last 7 games of the season and see if he could help us actually avoid relegation. I'd be more interested in that. But of course, international football is a big thing for footballers to represent their country. So I understand the sentiment, but for me, club over country, and I really want to see Kulu back. Get us that ginger from Sweden back on the pitch and see what he can do. And talking of injuries, just the final thing, really, I guess, if you haven't watched it, I would recommend watching the latest video from James Maddison on his ACL journey. Looks really, really sharp. Looks like he's playing really well in training on the pitch. He's back on grass, shooting, passing, running, jumping, stuff like that. Looks really, really sharp. Looks really, really fit. Really good to see his relationship with other players as well. Kind of seems like a bit of a leader as well. So interesting to see that. And he has also come out and said that he wants to stay with Tottenham regardless of relegation. So that's also good news. And fingers crossed, maybe we get a couple of games out of Maddison before the end of the season, even if that is just bit parts. But it will be good for him to get back on the pitch and everything else just before the summer. But big summer ahead for him in terms of fitness and so on. So another year out. But, that's football. Unfortunately. So 7 big games to come. We'll see what we can get out of those. But anyway, if you've enjoyed watching this episode, please do give us a thumbs up. Share if you can. Comment in the comment section below how you're feeling about being a Tottenham fan at the moment. Are you looking forward to what De Zerbi brings to Spurs? Are you behind him now? Do you think he can get us out of relegation? Is that going to happen? Subscribe to the channel, of course. Always helps. The algorithm doesn't cost you anything, but does let you know when any videos are put out on YouTube and so on. If you're listening to audio platforms, again, if you can follow, leave a review, those kind of things also help in terms of keeping you updated on what the channel's doing. And really helps the channel grow and understand what people need from us to provide good content for you. As I said at the beginning, my name's Lee The Dorset Spur, and I do have my own YouTube channel. Be more than happy to have you come over and view what I do. If you've liked this video, you'll like what I do over there. Try to do something every day and review the games and talk about the performances and so on, and update the news and give views on the news as they come. So if you fancy a new channel to follow, please do come over. It'll be great to have you on board. But thanks for watching this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Up the Spurs.